I'm not sure if God has ever been more obvious with me than he has been in this past week. So, if you watched last week's episode, you saw that I was talking about how God is taking me on a journey lately of going past my quiet time habit into going deeper with him and connecting with him throughout my day. And, I was talking about how, in a lot of ways, I already do that or have been doing that somewhat more intentionally when it comes to singing worship while I'm working instead of just listening to any kind of music or, watching YouTube videos or listening to podcasts or whatever. So I was already kind of doing that. And I was saying how, I'm curious to see the journey that God's going to take me on. Is it something where I need to block time in my calendar to, stop in the middle of the day and have prayer and things like that. We talked about some of that. And man, when you ask God to give you clarity on something, let me tell you, he does. It's that whole concept of what you focus on, you find, right? I've always known that. I've said that before when we talked about other things. I think maybe on my other podcast when I was talking about the high five habit by Mel Robbins, I was talking about that same concept that is very much what you focus on, you find. If you're looking for, good things in the world, then you're going to find good things. And if you're always looking for the negative, then you're always going to find the negative, right? I mean, that's what that means. When you're looking for clarity from God, when you're asking him for clarity, he'll give it to you. Now, whether or not you're paying attention, that may be debatable sometimes. But this time, he did not give me an opportunity to miss the message. So the way he's been pulling me closer in connection with him this week is really through prayer. He's talking to me not just about prayer in general, but about specific types of prayer, things that I can practically apply in my business and have been already this week. So I want to share some of that with you. But before I do, I just want to say if you like this kind of content, if this type of Christian conversation specifically around being a business owner is helpful for you, please take a minute, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and more importantly, share this video with a fellow Christian business owner that you know will be encouraged by it as well. So, okay, the types of prayer. Well, first off, let me back up for a second and show you or explain to you how God has been kind of hitting me over the head with the fact that he's inviting me into more prayer and more specific prayer. And there were 3 specific ways that he kind of did that for me this week. The first thing, and the one that we're going to talk about the most, is this devotional that he showed me on Audible. It's Phil Wickham's devotional, and it's on prayer. I can't remember exactly what it's called. I think it's called On Your Knees or something like that. And it's 40 days devotional of prayer. And so that is what we're going to come back to because there was a particular day this week that just really impacted me. So we'll come back to that. The second thing that he did was right after I had filmed, but before you guys saw the episode, we had a visiting pastor, not our regular pastor. He came and spoke at our church because our regular pastor was gone. And there was a specific topic that was part of the series that was intended to be talked about, but he didn't choose that topic. Instead, he decided to talk about something different, and he focused completely on prayer. Like right after I had just filmed the episode saying, I wonder, where God wants me to go deeper. He brought up prayer. This was right around the same time that I found that devotional. And then after that, last week, our church started passing out these flyers on like the 30 days of prayer. So I'm like, okay, I get it. I get it. Prayer is the focus right now. So let me just go back to the On Your Knees devotional from Phil Wickham. So what he does, like kind of the way that he's organized this devotional, it's actually really cool. You should check it out. Maybe I'll put a link to it in the description. But what he's been doing is kind of going through the Bible somewhat chronologically, pulling out specific passages or verses that talk about a different type of prayer that we see. So, for example, I think the one I listened to today was prayer for blessing, and there was another one, praying for protection and things like that. And he's showing us through these Bible stories the different ways that we can and are meant to pray. And it's really interesting. To be honest, like I don't know that I've ever given that much specific thought. Well, I guess there's two schools of thought on prayer, right? There's the super formal prayer, and that's where we get things like the Lord's Prayer that guide us through praying in a very specific way and a very traditional way. And I think that's fantastic. I think especially if you feel the need to pray, but you don't know what to pray, absolutely go to a prayer that is in the Bible. But then the other side of it is kind of this stream of consciousness prayer where we're just constantly in communication with God and we're just talking to him as though he were sitting right next to us. And that, I love that type of prayer. I feel like that's probably what I lean towards the most. But I think a combination of the two is really good. And so I think learning about the different types of more formal prayer that we see in the Bible can be really, really helpful. And so he tells the story and then he kind of gives some insight as far as like what type of prayer that story is showing us. And then he prays with you and he gives you a prayer reflection and stuff like that. So the one that really hit me was actually just a couple of days ago. And he was talking about when Solomon prayed for wisdom. And this is a story that I'd heard a bunch of times before. I mean, it's just, you always hear Solomon was so wise because when he had the opportunity to ask God for anything he wanted or anything he needed, instead of praying for riches or success or whatever, he prayed for wisdom. And so, yes, I've prayed for wisdom and, I've used that as a guide for prayer before. But the way that Phil kind of approached this, the insight that he brought out of it was different than I expected and different than what I'd heard before. And I really liked it. And it gave me a very practical thing to try this week. So before I do that, I want to always try to bring out our Bible and look at a particular passage. Even though this is a more reflective kind of month here, I want to still make sure that we're rooted in the Bible and not just me talking from my brain, right? So the passage that he read, that he was talking about, is 2 Chronicles chapter 1, verses 9 through 12. So I'll go ahead and read that in the NLT just to kind of ground us. Make sure you get it out in your translation if you prefer a different one. And actually, I think I'm going to backtrack because now that I'm looking at it, I think he may have started with verse 7. So that night, God appeared to Solomon and said, "What do you want? Ask and I will give it to you." Already, that's kind of hard to imagine. Like, we know that we can ask God for anything, but to have the experience of God coming to you directly and specifically saying, "What do you want? Anything you ask, I'm going to give it to you," like, kind of mind-blowing, right? So ask and I will give it to you. Solomon replied to God, "You showed great and faithful love to David, my father, and now you have made me king in this place. O Lord God, please continue to keep your promise to David, my father, for you have made me king over a people as numerous as the dust of the earth. Give me the wisdom and knowledge to lead them properly, for who could possibly govern this great people of yours?" God said to Solomon, "Because your greatest desire is to help your people, and you did not ask for wealth, riches, fame, or even the death of your enemies or a long life, but rather you asked for wisdom and knowledge to properly govern my people, I will certainly give you wisdom and knowledge you requested, but I will also give you wealth, riches, and fame, such as no other king has had before you or will ever have in the future." Okay, so I've heard this before in a lot of different perspectives, right? I mean, this can also kind of lead you down a prosperity gospel path a little bit, which is a little bit, I'm not really going to touch on that right now. Maybe we'll talk about that in the future. But the purpose here is that he's saying, I'm praying for wisdom. I want to be wise. And so he's already showing, by the way, that he already is wise because that's what he chose to pray for. So that's a little bit of an interesting thought I've always kind of had about this passage. But the way that Phil framed the response of this wasn't specifically that Solomon prayed for wisdom. It was that Solomon prayed for the tools he needed to fulfill his calling. And that's what felt different to me this week. It felt like something that I can pray specifically for in specific circumstances. So like, as an example, Phil said, when one of my daughters is coming to me having a really hard day, instead of praying for whatever is hurting her or giving her a hard time to go away, instead he prays that he will be able to show up for her in the way that she needs. And that was like light bulb moment for me. And I think as a business owner, especially as a service-based kind of coach slash mentor slash consulting kind of space, it hit me even harder because I think I said last week that sometimes I will pray before a big meeting or I'll pray before a Trello audit or something like that. And I was telling you just kind of offhand how I normally pray in those situations. And it's usually something like, if this is meant to be a client, help it to be clear that this is a client that I should work with and all that kind of thing. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that prayer, but it is definitely more self-focused and less focused on me serving the client in the right way. So I had a Trello audit this week, and prior to the session, I instead kind of took inspiration from this and from what Phil had said, and I prayed, God, help me to show up with the knowledge and the skill set to give this potential client what they need in this moment. And it was still a really great session, but more importantly than the outcome of the call, it's more about how different I felt in that call. Usually in a Trello audit, it can be a little bit stressful and it's not, necessarily the place that I want to be showing up from. And in this particular case, I felt so much more at peace and I definitely listened more than I normally do. It definitely had an impact on how I felt and how I showed up in that call. And it felt fantastic. But I wanted to share this particular experience with you because I feel like it is so practical, so applicable, and hopefully relatable. Hopefully you can think of a way that you might utilize this in your own business this week and see what it changes for you. And if you do try this out in your own business, please come into the comments and let me know, how did it go for you? What felt different about it? Because I would love to hear your experiences as well. Thanks for watching this episode all the way to the end, and I hope that you liked it, and more importantly, that you found it helpful. If you did, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with another Christian business owner that you know is going to love it as much as you did. God bless you.